Hey, this is Seth with In Demand Career. I show people how to get life-changing jobs in digital marketing with no previous experience and no education. And that includes my very special guest today, David, who was looking to make a career transition in his late 30s when he found my course. And even though he did not have any previous experience in digital marketing, he's able to get an entry-level job. And 2 years later is now making around $80,000 a year. And this is very exciting to me because, a lot of the people I interview are in their early to mid 20s. And David, a lot of my subscribers ask me, is this career viable for people in their 30s or 40s? It absolutely is. And David's story is a great example of that. So I'm really excited to share his story with you. Thanks for being here, David.
Appreciate you having me, Seth.
It's my pleasure. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about your current position and what you're doing right now?
So I am a senior manager, and essentially what I do is I'm siloed in advertising for Google and YouTube ads. And what also that I do is upsell when a specific client is in need of another channel. We can go a little bit more into that as you're looking in digital marketing as the grand scheme of things. What's not best for you, but what's best for the client ultimately.
What's your total budget, would you say, that you're managing?
I would say probably around $260,000 a month.
That's great. So, and you said you're a senior manager, you're 2 years into your career. Let's walk people back to what was going on in your life before you took the course. I know you said a lot of my students say they're just out of college or, just out of high school. What was going on with you?
I ended up working for this company called ADT Security. I worked for the corporate company, not a authorized reseller. So I was still able to transfer from Charleston, South Carolina to San Francisco and then Los Angeles. I worked that 100% commission-based sales job for 6 years. What I learned is that I like to be able to have my own schedule and make my own schedule. Obviously, still working, still reporting, but sometimes I wouldn't have to report to the office. That's beautiful. It got so annoying, and eventually it was just soul sucking. I became so depressed, kind of lethargic, and it was just horrible. You would make pay, and they would take it away from you when a client would cancel. It just wasn't for me. Not to say that it's horrible. It's great for some people, not for me.
Let me just interject a second, David, just because I want to, for our younger viewers who may not be familiar with what you're talking about. Commission only, by the way, that is the most brutal sales position you can think of, because what it means is, if you get a sales job, by the way, guys, most college graduates work in, and David didn't go to college, but most college graduates anyway work in sales or customer service or administrative, like office jobs. But sales jobs, some of them do provide a base salary so that you can feed yourself and then you get what's called commission, meaning if you're selling a security system or a product or a car, you get a percentage of the item that has sold. Now, commission only means basically you don't get paid unless you make a sale, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it gets even worse, because with this specific sales position, you would have these magical things called chargebacks, to where the company would pay you, and if the client canceled within a certain amount of time, they would take that money out of your next paycheck. Not reliable. It was feast or famine sometimes.
Yeah, it's very high pressure. It's very difficult, and this is there's people that thrive in it, but it takes a certain personality. It's definitely not the kind of secure, reliable career path that we're talking about here. So that obviously you weren't satisfied in this career. You can totally get it. Mm-hmm. So then, how did you end up finding, what did you do next?
I quit my job. I still needed a stable source of income, but did not want to get looped into another 9-to-5. So I started driving Uber and Lyft full time. When you're in the LAX area, it's pretty stable money, but it's still hard to drive all that time and still have a little bit of money to play with. Almost impossible. So then I was taking your course and wanted to diversify, and figured I would take another Amazon FBA Seller Central course. So tried that, and found out there was, $10,000 barrier to entry. I didn't have that up front. So I started to do retail arbitrage. Basically just taking the phone, right? Scanning items in the store at a discount, reselling them on Amazon, and you just take the profit. So that was okay, but it's not sustainable and it's not scalable unless you can have that $10,000 to like buy products in bulk, because that's the most difficult.
I'm going to just cut you off for 1 second, just to, again, to explain to people, and this is a really good point he's bringing up, because I'm going to make a whole separate video about this, which is, like most other forms of earning income online. That's why I push digital marketing so hard, because again, you don't have to outlay $10,000 to get started. Amazon FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. It's a particular approach to e-commerce where Amazon will fulfill the products in your store, but you also, as you mentioned, like you have to find the right niche, you have to do advertising, you have to just, handle inventory. There's so much more to e-commerce than what you see in those ads from, those gurus talking about quick money. And you're describing that. And on the other hand, driving Uber and Lyft, I think, is a great, very difficult but reliable source of income. And then retail arbitrage, what you're talking about is, what he means is like you can buy something on a discount and resell it at a higher price on Amazon. That's what arbitrage is, essentially, buying something over here and selling it over there. And again, these are all, legitimate ways to make money, but as you keep the word you keep using is it's not sustainable.
In your course, you said to essentially, if you can, build a digital resume. Build your own website. So mine was davidcalder.me. I started to build a website for myself. It was exactly the way that it is on paper and on LinkedIn. So having said that, I knew that I could build a website. And then while I was driving Uber, I would ask people, and like, oh, well, what do you do? I would tell them, and I'm trying to get into this. Like, oh, well, I have a website that I'd like to be built. What do you think about it? It's like, absolutely. So that's how I would get my free experience, building websites. So I built my website that way, and theirs.
And that's a tip I've never thought of, guys. If you drive Uber, or even if you don't drive Uber, because I noticed, when I lived in Tennessee and I was working online, I actually drove Lyft and Uber just for fun, not full time, because I just was like, I was kind of new to town, so I just wanted to meet people and talk to people. And you do meet a lot of interesting people when you're driving Uber and Lyft if you're sociable. And it goes, and it's exactly how I talk about it in the course, and exactly what you said. You literally don't have to push anything. Literally, you just ask people, like, what do you do? And they'll tell you, man, while you're in the car, if you're cool. And then and then you may just mention, hey, I'm learning Google ads or something. And so often people's ears perk up and they go, really, Google? I run a bakery, or, oh, I got a website, or I'm, this type of thing. So that's great. So this is all part of your generating experience process. So what happened, what happened to you next?
So I finally sat down with myself, because my pain point was making a resume. Like, I feel that my resume was never good enough. I didn't know what to put on there, didn't know what I wanted. So I sat down, I went through, hired somebody off of Fiverr to write me a digital marketing one. And then I just made significant alterations. Once I had that down, I went on to LinkedIn, and just like what you mentioned, I made sure that everything is the exact same. And then I also built my website.
I'm just curious. Website. I just want to cut you off. Why didn't you use the template in the course?
Because I kind of wanted to, my personal thing was that I was like, okay, well, this is a big course. Like, there's a lot of people probably going to be applying for the same position. I want to stand out. So I was like, I want something a little different. So that was it. So I did use that. I did use your template. I modified it, and also wanted to have somebody else's from like Fiverr. So I did use both of them. So I kind of merged them, if you will. Okay. But I will say this. The words that you have, your recommendations before the template, were spot on. So yeah, they definitely helped.
It's good to hear. And like I said, guys, it still works. I guess if I were taking the course, I might have that concern. Like, hey, everybody's using the similar template. Well, first of all, it's not you have to customize it. You can't just take the template and the first day of the course and just apply with it. You have to authentically generate your experience like David did, my other students did, and put that experience into the resume in the way I suggest. But the template and the wording and the approach and the strategy, it still works. And you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry that like, oh, other people are out applying using the same template, because there still are not enough skilled workers. It's not, we're not talking about, also my course, it's not like there's millions of people that have taken my course. It's still very small in the world of, more people have taken like a Amazon FBA course than have taken my course. So you're still in the minority and you're still going to stand out with the information. But and also you speak to a good point, which is, I know a lot of people are intimidated by the resume. So I'm glad you brought that up. So how did it go once you started applying with this new resume you put together?
Honestly, I should have done it a lot earlier. So shortly after, I started applying for most of the jobs via LinkedIn. And I set filters. I knew exactly what I wanted at this point and what I didn't want, more importantly, based off of my other jobs. So this was exactly what I wanted. And I got an interview probably a solid 30 days later. I was absolutely astounded. And I had one of the recruiters, it's a couple emails back and forth. One of the recruiters called me up and I felt them out and had a quick little conversation. I was like, hey, listen, I know you're a busy person. How long do you have? Because I wanted to have a chance to build a little bit of morale and a little bit of a connection with the recruiter. But more importantly, who am I going to be interviewing with? How many people? And probably some other questions that I came up with. Those were probably the two best questions that I asked. Can I have the names of those individuals? Yes, absolutely. Sent me an email. I instantly went to their LinkedIn page, tried to Google them, did my research on them, found out their interest, anything that they previously had experience at, maybe the job, anything that I could find on LinkedIn that I could use to my advantage to bring up in the interview. And then I was scheduled one in-person interview with two different people in office at the time, because this is pre-pandemic. And both individuals, since I already knew who I was going to be meeting with, I knew the previous jobs that they had. And one of them was wearing a hat. So I was able to, small talk a little bit, and then shared my experience that I just mentioned with you earlier. And one of the individuals had a hat on that said JPL. So JPL stands for Jet Propulsion Labs. So I was able to just pull from that and say, hey, tell me about that. Did you used to work for JPL? What's that like? I can only imagine working for a department of NASA, what that is like. So, and it helped me stand out a little bit more. A day later, I was set up with my final interview with another individual. And this was a video. So I had one in-person interview and two video interviews like this. And then they hired me on. I worked in office for about 2 or 3 months and then the pandemic hit and now we're all digital.
You're all remote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You touched on some good points that we had mentioned earlier. And I love the fact that, a lot of my students have a similar story, which is that for some reason they didn't just follow the course quickly and directly. They had a resistance, or they had some other thing they were doing, or they put it off. And everybody says the same thing that you did, which is that way we should did it earlier. Cause it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Cause these companies are all looking for what I show you how to communicate in the resume and in the course. And you mentioned in the interview, with your sales background, you're obviously confident in your communication and you know how to build rapport with people, and you saw somebody. That is a really good idea, guys, too, that he mentioned, is to, if you can get on LinkedIn and try to learn a little bit about the people you're going to be talking to. It's not a substitute for the skills. Some people think they can just talk their way into one of these jobs. You can't, because if you don't know account structure or have never heard of, CPC, they don't want to hire you. But if you have those skills and you also have a good personal connection, he asked them a little bit about themselves, like, when he asked about the JPL hat, or, it can be a very natural thing if you just have an awareness. Like, that's what I talk about in the course now with the interview video. Just know your audience. That's the biggest. Like, what were you saying about living in the South? And you had a kind of an opinion about certain social skills that you feel you may have from growing up in the South.
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned from living in California is that it's easier for me, because I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. And it's easier for an individual like me to just go out and make friends. I don't know if it's probably just me. But when I meet somebody that lives in California that is from the South, it just naturally, I don't know, things just naturally come up. You're just naturally inquisitive about things, which also definitely has translated to, me being as good as what I do here and helping everybody else, just because I have a natural curiosity on how things work.
Yeah, you were saying, well, you had, when we were talking before, you were saying, I mean, like you said, that what do Southerners do that maybe other people don't? Well, you were talking, and these were like, you were describing social skills, but you were kind of elaborating or being specific about things that maybe you grew up with that are very helpful.
Yeah, I would say just communication and team playing is really it. I don't know. Maybe we're more friendly around here. Just really depends. But a lot of people refer to it as like Southern hospitality, I guess.
Well, you were talking about reading the room. That was
yeah,
it was a great reading the room. For anyone watching this, just in interviews, reading the room just means you're aware of other people, the tone. You can feel in a way. There's an intuitive aspect to it. It's just like you can tell. It's like there's some people you walk into a room and you can kind of tell, this might fly here. The people here, they're going to like this topic. Maybe they're going to want to talk about football, or maybe they're going to want to, I shouldn't make a political comment in this particular situation, And some people, especially when you're like, we're just like bulls in a china shop. We just come in and just say whatever,
yeah.
Or when you were talking about what it's like to be from the South and you're talking about all this social awareness, or I was like, well, you're basically saying you're not a pushy New Yorker. Which it depends. Some offices want that. The point is, what I say in the course, just own who you are, your personality, your experience, and be conscious of other people, the people you're talking with. A lot of people in their interviews, they get up in their heads and they completely disconnect. They're just thinking about, I need the job. But if you're connected to the other people and aware of their needs and where they're coming from and how you can serve them, that's when you're more likely to get hired. So it sounds like you used all of this great experience, this very, unique background. And by the way, how old were you when you applied for this job?
We'll say 38.
38. So this is great, guys. If you're watching this, I mean, if you're in your 20s, I think this is all very valuable information. You had a lot more life experience, a lot more work experience. But sometimes people, again, do approach me about the course and they think, oh, is this only for 20-year-olds? Absolutely not. As David is a good example. So what was it like getting hired, and how much were you getting paid initially?
So they started me out at 55 full benefits the first day, right? And then plus bonuses whenever you get to that point. You have to work up to that point and have more accounts. So yeah, first things first is my first day at work. Remind you, the office is in Santa Monica. In like inland Santa Monica, off of like Barringer Boulevard, something like that. Massive office, gorgeous, right? So it's a complete change going from a corporate environment to where people are like older, unhappy, right? All that nature. And then you come to this work for this like a tech startup. You have this beautiful office. You got art on the wall. You have amazing people, right? A lot of people are brilliant. Everybody's young and fun. You got coffee on tap. You got snacks in the kitchen, right? Yeah, just go ahead and get some. My first day, the company just got back from a cruise like that day. They were just like, oh man, we wish you could have come. Like, if you got hired last week, you would have been there. Yeah, that would have been. So, I mean, these are like the things that just like one little thing. Like, you kidding me? The whole company went on a cruise? Like, yeah. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
That's the culture, man.
That's the culture. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that was it. And they gave me a brand new, like MacBook Pro at the time. Even now, I've got a brand new one. So it's just like they give you like the best technology, right? They want you to be like, they just want you to be the best version of yourself, and they don't want you to have any restraints. Like, be cool and get shit done.
Yeah, that's really it, guys. I mean, and that's a really good, I mean, given your background and what you were struggling with before, I think it sounded like this was a really nice change. So what's it been like?
Yeah.
What's it been like working in this company, and how did you make your way up to where you are currently?
So, direct answer to your question is it's been absolutely amazing. Completely changed my life around. Seriously. Like, I knew what I wanted in a job and found your course, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want that. I want that financial freedom. I want the location independence. And I do. I fly around on the weekends. And just long as I'm within a 3-hour time zone to communicate with my clients, and I have a quiet room to work in to take the calls, because I am client facing and meet with clients just like we are here. These CEOs, these are the directors of marketing. These are individuals, high power individuals that you're spending their money, right? And they want to know what you're doing. So I was just, I have a natural curiosity for how things work. And I was just like really, really involved with my work because I took it so seriously. I knew what would happen if this didn't work out. I would probably have to go back to driving Uber and Lyft again. So I was just absolutely definitive that this is what I'm doing. I'm going to do my absolute best. I'm going to make an impression. And, just, I don't have an ego. Nobody has an ego complex within the company. Everybody's super brilliant. And we all love to help each other out. You need something done, hit me up and let me know. If your workload is maximized and you're at bandwidth, like, I'll see what I can do. And other people are the exact same way. So we're just helping each other out. And, and mind you, that there's a lot of people that want to be on the front page of Google. That's usually the first thing. All clients, all businesses want to grow. And what does everybody want to do? Want to be on the first page of Google. Google's not going anywhere. Neither are the social platforms. But then again, every channel, social channels have their own strengths and weaknesses. Google has its own strengths and weaknesses. Probably one of the more interesting ones is the iOS 14 update, whenever that happened. You can't track conversions and dynamic conversion value like you used to. Google is not an app. I create a code that Google gives me. I modify it to track dynamic conversion value. I either install it on the client's website or I tell them to do it, and that's it. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio.
So you're referring to, just so people watching who don't know what you're talking about, is like Apple did a big update last year. For privacy reasons, Facebook threw a hissy fit for good reason, because Facebook lost a lot of money because they couldn't track people the same way they used to be. And it actually has made Facebook advertising a bit more difficult, which I think it's interesting that their stock has fallen off so much. But you're basically saying this hasn't affected Google quite as badly?
Yeah, Google's not an app. So, and the whole thing with iOS 14 is that it's for Apple, right? So any app that you download on an Apple device, you have to manually allow or not allow that tracking. The common misconception is that people, when you say not allow on that, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be tracked.
Right. And again, it's app based. That's a good point. So the point is, a lot of people watching this don't have the context for this conversation yet. So a lot of people are in my course, but you're doing Google ads. You took it very, very seriously, and you were able to work your way up into the company. And only in 2 years, you're a senior manager, right? So like, what was the process? You went from like 55 up to around 80. Like, how long did that take?
Plus bonuses. So yeah, 2 years essentially. So our company has a very aggressive growth strategy. We want to pay you more. We want you to stay. And that's the ultimate thing. We get told this on internal meetings every week on a regular basis, is that the CEO and CFO want to create an environment for one, for you to thrive, that you don't have anything holding you back with, systems and programs and platforms that make your work efficient, but more so that you don't leave. Like, typically in digital marketing agencies and with some individuals, they only stay with companies for like 1 to 3 years, right? It's difficult for an employer to like grow the company exponentially whenever people are leaving, especially when you train them up. So I was like, I'm not going anywhere. This is amazing. This is like, look at all this brand new tech and equipment that you guys are giving me to work with. All these brand new programs, right? Like the accounts, like everything it's so new. It's so fulfilling. Don't get me wrong. It's like drinking water through a fire hose when you work for an agency. I knew that going into it based off of what you said. Even the CEO and CFO both said that. They're like, it's like drinking water through a fire hose. So I knew what to expect when I was going into it. And yeah, it was really, really difficult for the first 3 months. That was my learning curve. But it was absolutely worth it. I was able to secure myself a position and still love it. And everybody on the Google team is, like still here and still loving it. Like we don't go anywhere. So it's a very secure position.
That's a great point, man. I point that out because like, this is why this field is so exciting for me. Because again, you're like a professional athlete. Like you're free agents and they want to keep you with a good team. They'll give you a contract, well, they don't give you a contract per se, but like they'll give you enough incentive to stay because they know you're going to go to a better company if that company is able to provide you with better stuff. And, that's what I love about, I just interviewed somebody who was he's 4 years into his career. He had an $80,000 offer. He leveraged it off 2 different companies and got up to 120. And he loves the company he's working for. And that's what's possible with these skills. There's some agencies have contacted me. Like there's one agency that a lot of my students have gotten entry-level jobs at, but they underpay. And I say, okay, I said, well, it's great. Work there for 6 months because then you get the experience, but they all leave. And the hiring manager said to me, hey, can you help me with turnover? Do you have any advice? And I said, pay people. What do you expect? You're in it. This is the market. This is what's so great. It's like agencies like yours are helping define the culture, I think. And it's like, yeah, if you love where you work, you're going to stay there. You build relationships with your coworkers. Did you go on if you started during COVID, it probably did not, but did you do something like a cruise or like community company, wide events or something? Or is that?
Yeah. We went to a professional basketball game, just our specific department. Right. So paid social, all the social platforms, and then paid search, which is just Google, essentially. We did that within the 3 months that I was there. That was essentially it. But then everything shut down. And now we just kind of meet up wherever we want to. We also have if you want to go to the office, we also have like a global membership for WeWork. So I could just, I got one of those black key cards so I can just go into anyone, anywhere. Doesn't matter. It's very fun.
That's great. You just sound like a company where you'd want to go back to work if you could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say this. I'm not the only one that'll say this, but being in an office is a distraction factor, right? You got really awesome people that are walking around that'll come and just like poke you on the shoulder and just like, hey, can you show me how to do this real quick? Or like, the vice versa of that situation, right? You might need to track somebody down. So just those little things, the little micro transactions that just kind of take your attention away, they do take up a lot of time over the course. And I'm just so much more productive. I actually work more. I'll work through lunches just because I'm eager to like look at a brand new account that I got and look at what the other agency did. And it's like, oh, no, you guys aren't doing it right. I'm going to switch things around, right? I love being able to do that.
That's interesting. Do you think that your company has recognized a productivity shift since you've gone remote? And are they going to stay remote after COVID is like more under control?
Absolutely. Yes, they have acknowledged the productivity shift, right? It's also something that I'm very happy to verbalize. I get to maximize my quality of life essentially. And no, we're not going to go back to office in this moment. It might change in the next 3 to 5 years. That's why they have introduced the global WeWork. But as of now, right, they get to save the overhead from not having to pay for an office for individuals. So they get to recycle that money back into the company.
That's absolutely, dude. When I got my first agency job in 2011, I liked, I like the social aspect to an extent. I would have liked to have gone into the office like one day a week just to kind of hang out with people and just be around them. But I was commuting. I lived in LA, man. I was going Redondo Beach up to the valley. Actually, the irony, if anyone watched this in LA, I actually lived in Woodland Hills or that kind of area, not Woodland Hills, but like around, what was it called? Canoga Park area.
That's out there.
And I was commuting to Sherman Oaks, and that took as long as Redondo Beach to Sherman Oaks. So basically, guys, what I'm saying is a 5-mile commute in the valley was the same as a 20-mile commute from the beach areas. LA,
so much traffic. Oh, so much traffic.
It was like 2 hours out of my day to go into an office, and I would sit in the office. And I remember I loved the job, but I was like, I'm on the computer literally get in. Hey guys, how's it going? You're dialed in, you got your headphones on, you're on your account. And I was like, I could do this from home. Like, this is so ridiculous. So now companies, and I said to myself, I was like, dude, you're renting an office in Sherman Oaks. Like, what is the overhead on this? So that is very smart. I'm glad you're fully remote. Yeah, man, I'm very happy for you. And it sounds like you got everything that you wanted and you're in a completely new career track. I was just going to ask you before we start to wrap this up, do you have any advice you'd give specifically to people who might be a little bit older than, my average student, some people in their 40s or, late 30s, or who are in a career shift? Do you have any advice for them about this whole thing in terms of maybe mindset or just any tips?
Let's see. Probably the first thing I would say is just have a willingness to learn, be open about everything, right? I mean, technology just moves so fast, but still everybody wants to be on the front page of Google. And it's what we do isn't like impossible. It's different. So your brain is going to have that hey, I don't like this, that form of resistance because it's a new skill that you're not used to. Once you get used to it, it's the new normal. So definitely having like a natural curiosity for how things work. I've already mentioned that worked well for me. Being able to identify with people, that worked well for me. But more importantly, like leverage your experience, your historical experience from all of your other jobs. But more so, if you have the ability to like make friends, or in my situation, like with Uber, everybody's going to ask you what you do. And literally like the thing about Google Ads is that you can make an account on your own for free. And Google will usually give you about $150 to $500 credit for brand new accounts. Once you spend that money, they will credit that money back. So you have a little bit of money to play around with, and you can gain experience tomorrow if you want to. You just have to have something to advertise. It could be anything. Advertise for your friend, advertise for, like your mom or dad, or like a brother or sister who has a business or is in sales and who needs, a little extra Google help. That's
what I teach in the course.
Precisely.
And you're right. And the credits nowadays, by the way, are more, once you spend money, they will give you a credit, a matching credit. It used to be like you could actually come right out of the gate with a credit. And I think they realized people were abusing that. But what you're speaking to, again, and this applies to everybody. I wanted to make a one video where I kind of address people who are a little bit older, because I know sometimes people watch a lot of these testimonials and they see people in their 20s and they think that maybe it's too late for them. I get people saying, I'm 30, am I too old? I'm like, no, dude. Like literally, you could be 60. It doesn't matter. It's all about what you just pointed out, which is a natural curiosity. I like that. I always say it's about attitude and aptitude, but natural curiosity is really the best like thing. In fact, what I think you're speaking to, and I'd like to distinguish here, is that like when you're in your early 20s or mid 20s, you may have a natural curiosity because it's like everything's new. Like you haven't worked at a job, you're just discovering it. And your process was you did have a natural curiosity for Google Ads. But sometimes if you're a little bit older, even myself, as you get a little bit older, you may lose that curiosity because of whatever you've experienced in your life. You kind of have to sort of create it again. The great thing about digital marketing for me when I was 33 was, it caused a natural curiosity in me. I was so interested. I was so curious. I was so excited about it. That is the quality employers want to see. They want to see how you think, and they want you to have that kind of an energy. And again, it doesn't matter how old you are. I've had, remember Armando is 52. He had the same vibe as you, the same vibe as my 20-year-old students. At the end of the day, it's what can you contribute to the company, and obviously you want to fit in and have good working relationships as well. But I think you're a great example of the fact that you can do this at any point in your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So listen, man. Thanks for sharing your story with us. I think we're going to start to wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to say to me or anybody watching before we finish up?
Yeah, congruent with what we just mentioned. So during the interview process, the director, who ultimately was going to make the decision, right? Later on, I found out that he said that the reason why he hired me, was not because of my Google experience. It's because I knew how to sell myself, and I know how to speak, and I'm articulate and logical with certain things. Basically, he's like, we can teach you the other skills, because I'm going to be client facing. And that's the thing about it. You have to be able to communicate these things with your clients. You have to be able to read a specific situation just by looking at the account. But more importantly, seasonality. Like if you have an ice cream client that is like, hey, we're not doing so good of business in December. Well, that's because you're selling ice cream. Not a whole lot of people want ice cream unless you're in certain areas. So that's kind of that. So yeah, I mean, seriously, Seth, the course has really, really changed my life. And I didn't even know it was a thing until I started searching. And I'm glad I dug in and, completed everything. And then, so thanks.
You're welcome, my friend. You're welcome. I'm very happy for you. I know what it was like. I was a little bit younger, but I was in my early 30s when I found this. I know what it's like to have worked for a number of years in very dissatisfying jobs. Remember, I was a waiter. I was a pizza delivery guy. I worked in offices. I did sales. I was doing telemarketing when I found digital marketing. It's awful. So I had the same kind of life-changing, inspirational, oh my God, I'm so happy I found this field. And I'm happy that you are experiencing that now. So, and you're still very new into it. I love it. You're only 2 years in. So you're doing very well, and it's only going to get better from here. So anyway, thanks so much for sharing your story with us, David. And, we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks, Seth.